Hi Maitreyi, how's it going?
Hi, Siddharth. It's going very well. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm fine. Really excited to be here.
How was your weekend and how was your virtual triathlon, if I remember?
Yes, so my virtual triathlon was the best part about my last weekend. I think I spent the entire Sunday also thinking about Saturday when I did it. It was great. I did the virtual half Ironman, and this is my second virtual half Ironman in 2 months. So
Wow.
that's how bored I have been in the quarantine, you know. But yeah, my weekend is fine. I'm looking forward to this weekend.
Mm-hmm. And
And I think for any triathlete, weekends are their longest training days. And it's a paradox that we look forward to killing ourselves over the weekend. So yeah, I'm really excited.
right. So you participate in these every week, every 2 weeks?
Well, not really, but it keeps popping up on your screen, right? That there is
Mm-hmm.
this virtual Ironman and this is the distance. And when you think you can easily do it,
Mm-hmm.
you sort of do it. And I think sometimes a person like me, I need to do such a big undertaking by myself just to get my bearings together,
Right.
just to regain that confidence, to that belief in myself that I can do it, because on the final day I'm going to be by myself, right? And
Right.
it's a real world out there in the full
Mm-hmm.
Ironman. So I think this kind of helps to do some mental strengthening more than physical, which is very important.
Definitely. So, tell us about yourself, like a little more. People already know you're into the Ironman and
Yes.
triathlon and stuff. So, tell
Yes,
us a
yes.
bit more about yourself.
Yes, so my triathlete side is my hobby side, but my actual self, my professional side is linked to it, but it's a little different. I'm a sports nutritionist and exercise physiologist by profession. I have a degree in microbiology right here in Pune from Garware College, after which I went on to get my undergraduate degree in nutrition and dietetics from Florida International University in Miami. It's a beautiful city. I hope to go back soon. And after that, I went on to get a dual master's degree in nutrition and exercise physiology from Teachers College, Columbia University, New York. I currently practice as a sports nutritionist, and I cater to a variety of athletes ranging from sprinters to endurance runners. I have wall climbers, swimmers, tennis players like yourself, and also some young figure skaters. So
Wonderful.
I really love my job. Yeah, it's never
Wonderful.
the same.
Why do you
Every day is
choose?
different.
Great, definitely. Must be really challenging as well, right? Working with different athletes all the time, competitive athletes especially.
It is actually great fun because when you see how driven they are,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that's the beauty about working with competitive athletes, is that they really understand the importance of sports nutrition to
Right,
enhance their performance, to get them to the next level.
right.
And they really do exactly what I say. If I tell them eat half a beetroot, they will eat half a beetroot. It's very nice. So it's very gratifying, I would say.
Definitely. And
Definitely.
why I feel competitive athletes do that is because they know, I mean, as compared to a normal, an average person, they get results based on what they do, right? So if they,
Yes,
like you said, if they don't follow that half a beetroot or half a bean, whatever you mentioned right now, and they go on to their tournaments and events and they lose, they're like, oh no, I should have had that half piece of chicken instead
absolutely.
of one or whatever, right? Should have followed the diet
Exactly.
exactly, and
Absolutely.
it hurts them. So definitely, they make changes and learn their lessons. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, why did you get started with this field? Like, were you always interested in nutrition or?
So my journey has been very, let's take the today as it comes. Let's see what happens.
Mhm.
My entire family are doctors, but you
Right.
know how difficult it is in India to get into a medical college, especially if you don't like physics and chemistry. And I used to hate it. So, so my parents said, okay, you're not doing medicine, so do the next thing we know, do microbiology. So I started doing microbiology, and then I was always, athletic, going to the gym and everything. And then that went on to getting my group fitness instructor certification. And from there on, I loved it, but I was still kind of exploring, what I really want to do. So to upgrade my group fitness instructor skills, I used to go to Thailand every year. There was a beautiful convention called Asia Fitness Convention. I think it still happens. But at that time, it was excellent. I mean, we didn't have workouts on trampolines and on busus and, some drum workouts back then in India. But nowadays, everybody has access to everything. Right. So one of the years that I went there, I did a sports nutrition certification offered at the conference. Okay. And they had a prep course, to get us like primed and ready for the exam a little earlier. So I went there and I attended it. And the people who were conducting the conference, the people who own the company, they're actually professors, at the university where I eventually studied. Right. And, Siddharth, their way of teaching, their way of explaining was just beautiful. It was nothing like what I have ever studied in India. Mm-hmm. Nobody kind of took it for granted that you know this, or demeaned you or berated you because you didn't know this. They right. started from scratch, and it was a beautiful process. I fell in love with it, and I've never liked studying much before. I was, right. I used to just study because I had to study, mm-hmm. just like so many of us. Right. But after the course and after the exam, I actually went up to them and I said, hey, I need to learn more about this. Can I come and study where you teach? So right. they said, yeah, but you'll have to give your GRE and stuff. And at that time I was like, whatever it takes, I'm ready to do it, because I also realized how little I knew about nutrition. Right. Staying in a little bubble in Pune, you don't know anything. You think you know it all, but you have to get out there and right. learn from the best. Mm-hmm. And that is also when I realized that I cannot keep teaching. I cannot keep taking group fitness classes. That's not for me. I love it. But at some point, I need something which is going to take me through life, right. Something more academically oriented. And that's where I went to Miami, and I did give my GRE, but I ended up doing an undergrad degree. Mm-hmm. So in nutrition and dietetics, and I loved it. But, I still felt that I don't know enough about nutrition at the end of the 4-year degree. And I was like, hey, now what do I do? But I also now want to do something in exercise, because exercise is my first love. Mm-hmm. If, I want to do something academic in exercise, something which goes beyond muscle bulking and blah, blah, blah. Right. So then I did my research. I gave my GRE again. Wow. And I did a master's in nutrition and exercise physiology, like a dual master's from Columbia University, which was absolutely amazing. I'm really, really blessed to have done that. And then there was no looking back from there. I came back to India and I have started my clinic, and I'm very, very happy about it.
Wonderful.
That's my journey.
That's great. I mean, you have a passion for learning. So, I mean, even after doing so much, you still want to, keep updating your skills.
That's the thing. I feel like the more you study, the more you feel like you need to do a little bit more, right. Which is great. Yeah.
I mean, when you've just done a bit, you think you know everything, and then you try to go deeper into it, and then you realize, oh my God, there's such a huge, vast field in, everything, and then you still,
yeah.
as you keep studying, you feel like you still don't know as much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Right. So, what is sports nutrition?
Great question. So sports nutrition is the science, or I would say the art of, I'm giving you the definition, the textbook definition. It's the art of strategizing nutrition to enhance athletic performance. So it's very specific to the sport. It's very specific to the lifestyle of the athlete. Mm-hmm. Food is planned according to the athlete's training timing, recovery timing, and is planned enough to help him or her recover from the previous session to go on to the next one. Because sometimes, in the competitive season, like you yourself must have experienced, you guys do 3 to 4 workouts in a day. Right. And they all have to be done at 100% of your capacity. And training can only take you so far. You have to start supplementing at least with good food to get the maximum gains out of your training. So that is why sports nutrition is very, very important.
To what extent is it different from general nutrition?
Okay, yeah. So with now understand the psychology of the athlete, right? They will do whatever it takes to do their best on court.
Right.
And they will do this even if they haven't got the best sleep the previous night, which nobody gets. We're all really jittery and antsy. Right. And then that translates into the nerves kicking in the morning, and a lot of athletes prefer to avoid food. Food is the last thing on their mind when they are playing a game, or when there's so much pressure.
Right.
Now you're trying to, and you've just had a general dinner, the previous night. You've probably had butter chicken and roti or something like that. So you're completely depleted by the time you start playing, but you're so nervous that you don't realize it. And then you're trying to kick your brain and your muscles into action to skillfully and powerfully beat your opponent. Now, both these, the brain, that's the organ, and the muscle tissue run on glucose. And you have completely depleted yourself of that. If you're a young athlete, if you're very, very driven, you will still do your best, which I'm sure, you must have gone through this process as well. But it will not be 200%, which is what you're expected to, give on court. That is why sports nutrition is important. See, general nutrition is good for general health. It's great to keep diseases, at bay. It's great to keep your blood pressure low. It's great to keep a general well-being. But it's not specific to sports. For example, a lot of parents, have this question: can I give my child 2 whole eggs or eggs before he starts playing? That is the time when they want to be the healthiest. But what is eggs? Fat and protein. What fuel is your child using at the game? Carbohydrates. So why would you give your child eggs and expect him or her to, have a great game? It's not going to happen. Right. So this is the time you want to give them that little bit what they want. Give them a peanut butter jelly sandwich. They want to have chocolate. Give them the chocolate at that particular time, because it's sugar and it's going to help the child or the athlete perform well, right. Which is why it's specific again. So that is how it is different from general nutrition.
Right. So you got me all emotional because it brought back so many memories of my...
it brought back butter chicken memories that you had the previous
Not butter chicken, not butter chicken. The feeling of, helplessness when you're like, what's going on? Why, when we're competing in tournaments and then you haven't eaten well or, slept well, and then you're like...
Exactly.
You really want to play much better. And
sometimes, I also feel like with hydration, it's so important. What do our well-wishers kind of tell us? Don't drink too much water when you're playing. You'll get stitches.
Right.
Yes. But water is so important. Electrolytes are so important, because electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium, is required for the muscle to do every and any contraction. And when you're playing, you're doing 1,000 times more muscle contractions than you are at rest.
Right.
And your muscle is fueled on carbohydrates and electrolytes.
Right.
And you don't have your electrolyte drink, you don't have water. It's going to be very detrimental for performance. So again, hydration is a part of sports nutrition. So you have to start priming your stomach, priming your, large intestine to handle water while playing, handle food while playing. And then, you notice good gains.
Definitely.
And then athletes basically don't have that feeling of helplessness. Wherever they are in the world, they know what they're supposed to eat, how much, and what they're supposed to drink. Right. So they become, their self-efficacy kind of increases, which is great, which translates into a more confident athlete playing on court.
Yeah. Definitely. Totally agree. So how do people perceive sports nutrition in India right now? And has it changed a lot since you first started, getting into this field, when you first started studying about nutrition?
Yes, so I think that there has been a great change. Maybe I've been in this field for 6 years now, but I would say sometime around that time, or maybe when you were playing, there was a serious boundary between pros and amateur athletes.
Right.
Pros got some, they got a little bit more attention than your amateur recreation athletes. But now what's happening is that boundary is merging. So at every stage for n number of years, I'm sure so many amateurs wanted to be pros,
Right.
at some stage in their career. But I think now it is possible for 80% of the amateurs. And this is because social media has really increased the reach of both parents and athletes to the importance of, to basically what happens in the world.
Definitely.
An athlete just does not need to train. He needs the paraphernalia of nutrition, of physiotherapy, of any kind of rehab to enhance his or her performance. And that has really changed the outlook of parents towards sports nutrition. And it has also changed the outlook of, older master athletes, because they understand that their body has taken them to where it could. But now it has to be nutrition. And also, Siddharth, nutrition is very important to improve the longevity in the sport and the quality of life of the athlete in the sport, right? Because I have so many master athletes who are power lifters and weightlifters, so they have a lot of jerky movements. And for the longest time, they suffered knee pain. They suffered tremendous knee pain. And it was all about just getting your vitamin D levels checked and introducing some carbohydrates. Because, all this time they were eating somewhere around 15, 16 eggs. And as we know, eggs are not fueling that activity.
Right.
So it was wrong fueling and deficiency of B12, of vitamin D. So, the moment you tweak their diet, they are so much better. So sports nutrition is given a lot of importance nowadays. I even get, I think I even get 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds whose parents are, they tell me that we want to make her whatever. She was like a pro tennis player, or we want to at least guide her and then she can make the choice. So let's start from now. I have so many little athletes like that. So it's very fascinating. And also parents want to make sure that they're giving their child enough nutrition. They're not leaving out anything. Like, just general nutrition may not be enough for this particular athlete.
Right.
They do need to, be careful of some things in the day. Because a child may be doing a little more than her or his non-athletic peer. So I think sports nutrition is taken pretty seriously now. Definitely.
Wonderful. So Pune specifically is a really, you can say a sports town, a sports city. I mean,
it is. Yeah.
It's always been that way. I mean, for years together. So it's great.
Yeah.
So, like you mentioned earlier, only the professionals and people in the big cities had access to the best coaches, and I won't even say the best nutritionists, because even there was a gap, right? But the professional coaches also had some amount of idea about sports nutrition.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. Now coaches are incorporating nutritionists.
Right.
Coaches are actually sending out referrals, which is great, because earlier it was, the coach is the veto. Whatever the coach says, the athlete does.
Right.
But thankfully now coach understands that they need to work smart with the athletes and not just work hard. And that may need some external help.
Well,
so that's also really nice.
It's the whole ecosystem, right? I mean, if they get better nutrition, they improve their results, and the coaches grow as well, right? So their
Exactly.
reputation
Absolutely.
grows. So definitely they will do whatever it takes to improve the athletes. Also, I feel now people have a lot more access to information that wasn't there earlier. So just through this, just by listening to this podcast for like 30 minutes or so, they're going to be much, more aware about their nutrition than people were earlier, right? And even if they can't probably afford a nutritionist or whatever, they can start making, smarter nutrition choices.
They can at least start thinking
Exactly.
before they eat. I think that is the first.
Right. So, of course, someone who hasn't been maintaining a healthy diet, they suddenly, hear about all this, this concept of sports nutrition and everything of that sort. How do they, gradually go about it, instead of, one thing is they may realize that, oh my God, I haven't been following a proper diet at all. and they may get overwhelmed, and then they end up not doing anything about it, right? Because there's so much information, and they're like, so what do you suggest people do? How do they get started with maintaining good diet, like gradually?
Right. So I think the first step is just realizing that you need to think, about what you eat, like I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're specifically talking about athletes, their performance is very dear to them.
Right.
Once they see improvements in their performance, they get receptive to thinking about nutrition through their day. So why not just take that training hour and try and eat well around the training? Okay, so the rule of thumb is never land up on court dehydrated. You always need to remember when you last drank water, or you last drank a sports drink, or fruit juice or something, some form of liquid. And the second thing is never come on court without eating.
Okay.
Right? And then I'm sure the other question is, how can we eat before we play? Again, it's very specific. You need to know what to eat. Just before the game, have a small snacks, like 15-20 minutes before, when you're wearing your shoes, when you're getting ready to do your warm-up, pop 4-5 dates in your mouth, carry them with you, have a banana, have an orange. If you have a sports drink like a Gatorade, take a couple of sips. Just get your blood sugar level high. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then play, and then the athlete will definitely notice gains in their performance. They will suddenly see that, I'm aware and I'm awake while playing. I'm just not blindly doing what my coach is asking me to do. This feels good. This feels really good, and I want to make this better. Mm-hmm. Once they get that feeling, then they can start thinking about how they can improve their nutrition through the rest of the day. And then I would say, once they've reached that stage, please approach a professional sports nutritionist like me to simplify this further and help you incorporate this in your daily routine, so that it's not an effort and it's not overwhelming. Because nutrition is not overwhelming. It's just that nowadays there's a bucket load of information which kind of complicates everything. And things are not complicated, because for so many years, if the athlete has been going on playing well without paying attention to the diet, definitely the diet has been working silently. But now you just have to put it into focus. That's all.
Yeah, tweak it a bit, and
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
So about the eating before playing thing, mm-hmm. If given an option, I mean, should you eat whatever it is, or if you don't have the the healthy foods that you mentioned, should you eat whatever it is, or is it better to go empty stomach and train?
It is never a good idea to go empty stomach and train.
So
okay, now there are a couple of things. So there are a couple of things to this. You are going to be using carbohydrates when you perform. So you have to, so there are two places in your body that stores carbohydrates: your liver and your muscles. Okay. So your muscles can store carbohydrates from up to 4 hours before you actually start playing. So remember this: if you have a playing, if you have your training is at 5 o'clock in the evening, have a good lunch. Roti, sabji, dal, chawal at 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, whatever your usual lunch time is. Don't skimp on lunch. Don't go have a packet of chips after school, or, ignore the carbohydrates, because that's fueling your muscles. Mm-hmm. Then closer to the game, just about half an hour before or 15 minutes before, have a little something, which is again carbohydrate. Because at that time, having an egg is, like we discussed earlier, is not going to really have any beneficial effect. Right. Other than sitting in your stomach and, causing some distress, because protein and fat, which is what the egg is made out of, it is very difficult to digest. Mm-hmm. So you want to have something that gets digested before it reaches your stomach, because we have salivary amylases in our mouth to digest carbohydrates. Right. So a banana, a couple of dates, mm-hmm. A small piece of chocolate. These things are always available in the house. Right. A small cup of fruit juice. Or if there's nothing, then nimbu pani with salt and sugar. Mm-hmm. So now what this does is it tops up the liver glucose stores. Because when we play, we use carbohydrates which have been stored in our muscles. But our blood sugar needs to be maintained. And liver does that. So liver topping up is very, very important. While you can play after, only on a lunch, you can play at 5 o'clock only on a lunch, but you will notice that it's better if you eat something.
Right.
And again, if the athletes somehow just cannot eat before the game, eat during the game. You go to have water during your water break, pop 4 dates in your mouth, come back. It's the same thing.
Great. So the small things.
It's always the small things,
Right. So are all the, let's say, foods available in India to compete at an elite level? Or, or do foreign countries have, the upper hand? Let's say they can take, better quality meat, or they have different vegetables that's available abroad, and which is not in India. Or do you think the Indian diet, the Indian nutrition is more than sufficient to be able to compete at an elite level?
Okay, that's a great question. We have, I think we'll have to talk about it in many parts. To answer your question, the Indian diet has a variety of both vegetarian and non-vegetarian cuisines, which are by themselves, excellent to make an elite athlete. Where the limitation comes in is the athlete himself, or the family beliefs, cultural traditions, which in India, we're predominantly a vegetarian country.
Right.
Okay. So if we consider a vegetarian athlete who drinks milk, right, is not going to have much of an issue getting the right amounts of protein. So let's only talk about protein first. Sure. Getting the right amount of protein to, enhance his or her performance, promote muscle recovery, all of that. That's fantastic. Now, there are so many athletes who don't drink milk and are vegetarians. Okay. There is a body of research which says that vegan athletes or vegetarian athletes, just because of the sheer volume of food that they eat, because athletes obviously have a robust appetite, they eat more than non-athletes. Right. Just owing to the sheer volume of the foods they eat, they do meet their protein requirements. In my opinion, to be on the safer side, vegetarian athletes who don't drink milk are better off with a protein supplement. I'll tell you why. Because protein is high biological value protein and low biological value protein, right? So high biological value protein is where all the protein that you eat gets absorbed, about 98%, which is true in the case of meat proteins, egg proteins, milk proteins, right? So if the athlete is eating milk and milk products, poultry, meat, maybe red meat once a week, fish, then there is no problem. He or she is getting the high biological value protein. Now let's look at vegetarian athletes. On vegetarian food, dals, lentils, pulses, they are a great source of protein. The thing is, they also have substances which block the absorption of protein. So you have to eat a lot more of these foods to get the same amount of protein, or you have to supplement. Now, endurance athletes have been, the guidelines are that they need to eat somewhere between 1.2 to 1.4 gram protein per kg body weight. And your strength training athletes, that is your powerlifters, Olympic lifters, they are expected to consume between 1.6 to 1.7 gram protein per kg body weight. Right. Non-vegetarian athletes will not have an issue with this. Vegetarian athletes may have an issue with this. So, I always tell them, please just supplement with protein. It will make our life easier. Let that protein supplement also be something which is a high biological value protein, something like whey protein or casein or some kind of milk protein, at the least. Right. The other issue that can arise is that a lot of our athletes are engaged in explosive repetitive sports. Like you'll see a lot of sprinters, and nowadays there are a lot of weightlifters, powerlifters who are doing like for a short time, but explosive repetitive activities. Now what fuels this? It is creatine. Creatine is stored in your muscles. Creatine is made out of protein. Right? So for an athlete who's not consuming muscle protein, which is meat, research has shown that intramuscular creatine stores of vegetarian vegan athletes are on the lower side as compared to those of, the non-vegetarian athletes. So of course, after a complete assessment, sometimes creatine supplementation may be required to just put you on par, give you that little advantage which could have otherwise held you back. In terms of carbohydrates in the diet of an elite athlete make up the chunk of calories, 45% to 65%. An Indian diet is abundant in all kinds of lovely lentils and grains and pulses and rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes. So I think getting carbohydrates is not an issue. There we are pretty sorted. Fat, the guidelines are 1 gram fat per kg body weight for athletes, because there is no additional benefit of supplementing with fat, So 1 gram fat per kg body weight is definitely going to be available, because our sabzis, our rotis, everything is made in oil. Little bit oil is used. Then we have nuts and we have seeds. So fat is also not the concern. So if the athlete can be mindful of his or her protein intake, educate themselves, accept that they need a little bit more help, be willing to eat more or be willing to supplement, then, I think we're all set.
Wonderful. Follow up, obviously. Protein supplements. Talk to us about.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big hassle. I mean, trying to find out the right protein supplements and the affordability. There's so many options on the internet. You don't know who's being paid to talk about these supplements and what are, the genuine good brands. So what can you share with us about that? You don't have to mention the brands, but just share like how to go about,
So I get this question very often, and I don't share brands, and my final aim is to educate my client.
Right.
I need to make him or her self-sufficient, self-aware, that anywhere you go, you know exactly what to eat. You cannot be influenced by anybody. So I have a checklist, how to choose the right protein. Number 1. So let me share the checklist with you.
Sure.
It's also, one of the posts in my Instagram page. So if anybody wants to sort of check it out, my Instagram handle is Maitreyi_health, and I have that little checklist there. So how do you choose the right protein? Number 1, it needs to have between 15 and 25 grams protein per scoop. Okay. Because we're having a protein supplement.
Right.
It needs to have 4 grams or less of carbohydrates, because we're not having a carbohydrate supplement. It needs to have 1 gram or less of fat, because again, protein supplement, right? It needs to have 5 grams of an amino acid called leucine every serving, because leucine is the amino acid which sort of triggers the mTOR pathway or the muscle building pathway, right? Which also enhances recovery and stuff like that. So it needs to have leucine. It should be sweetened, but it should not have sugar, because again, that's defeating the purpose. Artificial sweeteners, it will always have. So just keep in mind, go through all of this. And if you and then make your choice.
Right.
Of course, select a flavor you like. Yeah.
And if you can mention a bit about, we see the news about all the counterfeiting and people, adding different stuff into the protein powders. So
yeah, so there are ways to check the authenticity of the supplement, right? There is a little label which has a code, and you have to go to the particular protein brand and enter the code and see if it matches.
Right.
That is the only way to check the authenticity in India. Yes.
Right. Wonderful. So it's not always affordable, right? The protein powders. And
correct. It's not.
Yeah. So is it better to, let's say they suggest having 2 scoops a day or whatever. If you can't afford it, is it all right to have, at least some amount of protein, like at least a scoop a day or whatever, is that?
See, again, not everybody needs the supplementation.
Right.
And I would say athletes generally don't, because they eat a lot of food. So this is about educating the athlete. If the athlete is not affording of the supplement, I don't force it, because it's a supplement. I don't supplement at all, because I eat a lot of food. So I will tell the athlete that here is when you have to close your brain and eat, because you need the food.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes athletes, it's not just about protein. If they don't eat enough, they're not getting any of the vitamins and minerals. They're not getting the fat. They're not getting the carbohydrates.
Right.
So everything kind of reduces. So then the athlete has to be ready to, sort of eat more food.
Right. Definitely. Um, Athletes have different training days, right? So at
Yes.
times, So at times they go heavy. They have a lot of intense
Mm-hmm.
workouts, and then they have to
Mm-hmm.
follow it up with a lighter session, and then you
Mm.
break once a week or whatever. How do you balance your diet accordingly?
So there is a great visual to explain this. Again, we're all about making the athletes self-sufficient. We're all about making them self-aware so they don't trouble their parents or don't trouble their nutritionists too often.
Right.
So this is an educational tool. So Siddharth, you want to share the screen?
Right.
So let me just say that this is a visual called as the athlete's plate. Okay, it was developed by collaboration of the International Olympic Committee, IOC, with the University of Colorado, their graduate program, the graduate students.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can see the visual, and if anybody is listening to us on the audio, I would highly encourage you to look it up. It's called as the athlete's plate. So on a hard training day, like we discussed before, carbohydrates are fueling you. So your recovery, your nutrition pre and post through the day has to be a chunk of carbohydrates. So take your plate, divide it into 3 parts. One big half has to be full of, pastas, rice, potatoes, cereals, breads, or any carbohydrate of your choice. Then the other 1/4 portion is going to be protein, because see, there is no benefit in consuming too much protein. Our body does not have stores for protein. So depending on the energy need, it's going to be used as energy, or it is going to be stored as fat if the athlete is not active. So it's better to consume just the amount of protein that we need, which is usually between 15 and 25 grams, per meal, which is usually the size of one chicken breast.
Right.
So consume your protein, and then the remaining has to be vegetables, because for recovery, you need the vitamins and the minerals which are abundantly available in vegetables. Coupled with that, on those training days, you also need a little bit more fat. So you can have up to 2 tablespoons, of fat coming from oil, coming from ghee, or coming from nuts. 1 tablespoon of oil is equal to 6 nuts. So just calculate that at every meal. Coupled with that, you have to have some kind of water. It can be flavored water, it can be regular water, it can be any kind of liquid to sort out your hydration, and herbs to improve your immunity. This is on a hard training day.
Right.
Now, if we go to a moderate training day, even before the visual comes up, you should know that the only thing that's going to change is the amount of carbohydrates. There you go. So in the previous picture, half of the plate was carbohydrates. Now you see that just over 1/4 of the plate is carbohydrates. This is because the athlete has probably not engaged in a very vigorous session, but it is an exercise session nevertheless, and it has to be you have to supplement carbohydrates to recover. You cannot never really run away from them. A major chunk of the plate will come from vegetables and fruits, and your protein pretty much stays the same, because again, there is no benefit in consuming extra protein. You just need according to your requirements, anywhere between 15 and 25 grams per meal. Oil obviously reduces, and the rest of the plate in terms of water and herbs and fruits stay the same. So 2 fruits, a little less than half your plate is full of vegetables, a little over 1/4 of your plate is full of grains, and the remaining is protein.
Right.
And now when we go to the easy training day, obviously half of your plate is going to be full of vegetables. You want to go to the easy training day, Siddharth?
Sure.
Yeah. So in terms of the easy training days, or if an athlete is interested in weight management, sometimes athletes get injured. Sometimes they just want to take a break from playing. It's their off season. This is how the athlete should eat. Right. Half of the plate has to be fruits and vegetables. A very small portion, a palm-sized portion of your plate has to be grains. Okay? And depending on whether you have trained that day or you are looking at weight management, will be your protein. If you have trained that day, then you can eat a little bit more protein. If you are just looking at weight management, then a palm-sized portion of protein. So basically, what is more important to remember is that half your plate has to be fruits and vegetables, and the remaining half divided into whole grains and lean protein. Obviously, because it's an easy training day, your fat requirement goes down. It is limited to 1 teaspoon per meal. Water and the herb requirement stays the same. So it just kind of tells us that we don't really need much fat. 1 teaspoon of fat, a couple of nuts, 1 tablespoon serving of flax seeds will do it. Contrary to popular beliefs that you have to eat ghee at every meal, or you have to supplement with this fat or that fat. It's not really required. Pay more attention to your fruits and vegetables. Get your vitamins and minerals, because they are very, very important for the health of your immune system. Get your protein at every meal, either from a vegetarian source or from a non-vegetarian source. And get your starch. If you are a vegetarian athlete and your protein is primarily coming from dals, pulses, please squeeze lemon on it. It enhances the absorption of iron from the protein. So I think that is also very important, because vegetarian athletes, especially girls, they can have low iron content if it is not monitored.
Right.
So that is how an athlete should eat according to the nature of their training. Guys, look up the athlete's plate. It's very interesting.
Okay, so since we've been talking, since you showed me all these healthy foods, I just had to bring it up. Cheat meals.
What is it?
Cheat meals.
Okay, yes.
So that is very important for everyone, for me, and I'm sure.
For me.
Right. So when we talk about cheat meals, what do you suggest? Like, I mean, we see, I don't know if you follow The Rock on Instagram, and what we see him doing is, on a Sunday, he eats like crazy. Like, he eats all cookies and chocolate chip cookies and whatnot he can, right?
Right.
On the other hand...
Or I think even whatever he can't.
Right. Just for the sake of it. On the other hand,
Instagram.
Right. Is it all right to have bits of, cheat foods, you can say, every day? I mean, every day, just a bit, or have a lot on a Sunday, on one day, once a week, or once in 10 days? What do you suggest is better to do?
Right. So I always believe in normalizing things. Don't keep it a novelty, because it's not going to do any good for you. When we see The Rock, we only see that picture on Instagram. We don't know what supplements he's taking. We don't know how much of it he has eaten. We don't know what he does after that. So it's a very one-dimensional view that he's giving us. Right. But, our athletes in real world, they have legit stresses. They're dealing with jobs, they're dealing with school. Right. One day of gluttony can really hamper the athlete's psyche. It can make them think that now they have to compensate and train even harder and then not eat anything on a Monday. Right. And what if they just injured themselves? What if their cognitive ability declines because they don't have food? Like we discussed, their blood and muscle glucose is not stored, so they can't think. Right. And they kind of go and twist their ankle or something. Right. So it goes beyond a visual, an Instagram visual. Normalize your sweets. Yes, you are athletes. You are entitled to, just like everybody else, to have what you like. Right. Athletes by no means can afford to eat everything and anything they want. Okay? And I'll tell you why that is. Here's what we usually do, the human psyche. If you run or if you play a lot on a Sunday, somehow we think that we're entitled to eat whatever we want on a Monday. Right. But actually, your resting metabolic rate on Monday is not the same as it was on Sunday, because on Sunday it was a lot higher. You burned so many calories, but on Monday it's the same, right? Right. So So on Sunday, yes, you can eat whatever you want. You want to eat it on Monday, portion control it. Because that is your easy day. Stick to the athlete's plate. The athlete's plate nowhere says that desserts are allowed, either on hard training days or on easy days or on moderate days. Right? So it is upon us. Normalize things. Don't keep it as a novelty. You like something, eat it, enjoy it, and then move on. Right. Athletes, just like regular people, have to portion control their cheats.
Right. So
it's not different.
Yeah.
For anybody.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, why don't you talk to us a bit more about portion control? Because why I ask this is, what is portion control for one person is like really is a lot for another person. So let's say for me, who I don't eat a lot. So for me, eating, let's say one sweet is a big deal compared to another person who eats a lot and he eats one sweet. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? Like,
yeah, of course.
Something that is a lot for someone is not a lot for another person. So how do you do it as for yourself, or is there a certain amount, like one scoop of ice cream?
So there are ideal guidelines, like, let me talk to you about those first, where they actually have portion sizes written, like a golf ball is equal to one scoop of ice cream, a deck of cards is equal to something else, blah, blah, blah. But now, like you said, everybody is different. Like your scoop of ice cream and my scoop of ice cream may be different.
Right.
I may have 5 golf balls and I would still think it's one scoop.
Right.
Okay. Here's what I tell my athletes, and here's a practice I follow myself. If I want to eat a treat, right, I'm going to eat it, enjoy it in such a way that I can move on and forget about it. Don't let it weigh on your mind. The moment it is a baggage, you know that you have to work on it. Right. You want to introduce it in your lifestyle. You want to normalize it. You want to take away the novelty. Eat it. And then when you eat it in such an amount that you can forget about it the next second, then you will not overeat, Right. Because overeating is you telling your brain that, hey, I'm going to finish this. It's not the brain telling you, okay, enough. And the brain definitely tells you. Right. Okay. It's you who override those signals. So, my athletes also have a great time with this little line that I have, and I think they've had some good successes. So even at social occasions or, family gatherings or birthday parties, you're not left out because you are eating, you're participating. Right. But you eat how much ever you want, and then that's it,
Right. How does that hamper achieving, suppose you want to have a 6-pack or whatever, exercise goals, fitness goals you have? How does, normalizing these cheat meals or whatever hamper, to what extent does it hamper the progress? Or does it?
Again, every body type is different. So that, some people are what we call slow responders. Some people are fast responders to exercise and diet. It's just very, very individual. For some people, they can kind of mindfully eat what they want and still get their results. Some people don't. Right. So it's, there's no one answer to this. And it's usually a personality type. If you notice people who can, they eat and they exercise and they don't let it consume them.
Right.
They usually are successful. But if you have somebody who's going to sit hibernating over that one point and let the stress build up, the cortisol build up, which is again fat storing, it's counterproductive.
Right.
So you want to be in a relaxed state. The food is meant to make you feel good. Any food is meant to make you feel good. The moment it doesn't, you know that you don't have to eat it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the mind plays a huge role, right, in nutrition.
Absolutely.
Regardless, I mean, I had read an article. I'm not sure if it was during my school days or when, but so yeah, there was this.
So not too long back.
No, that's really long back. Yeah. So there was this article where there's this lady who's like probably 90 years old, and she just believes that burgers or whatever are healthy, even though they're like junk, basically junk, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if it was burgers or pizza, and she's been eating that every day, and she's still 90 years and healthy, and that is only because she truly believed that that food was healthy and it wasn't junk. So yeah, I mean, you
Exactly.
don't have to take it literally, but I don't even know if it's a true story or not, but
So I think, for all our listeners, we should dissect this,
yeah,
and we should say that, again, this is a one-dimensional view that they're giving us. We need to look into her genetic history. Probably all her ancestors lived to 90,
right.
And again, there's very little stress hormone secretion when she's eating the food.
Mm-hmm.
That's why even in terms of exercise, I always tell my clients, yoga pasand hai? Do yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Because your body is thinking of it as exercise.
Right.
You will adjust the rest of your day thinking you've done an exercise session in the morning, just like anybody else who would have done a HIIT or a cycle workout or something like that. So the less stress hormone secretion that we can induce, the better it is. I think, yes, definitely.
Right. Okay, I had a question around people working out.
Yeah.
I work out. I mean, before the lockdown, I used to go to the gym really often. You see a lot of people taking in these pre-workouts before the session. Then they have these stuff during their workouts. And what are your thoughts on that? Like, does it help? I'm sure it helps, because in the sense that those who are taking it are pretty well built. So, to what extent is that good for you?
Right. So this will be a technical answer.
Sure.
Because I think people should know, exactly what it is that they're putting in their bodies. The pre-workouts contain nitric oxide stimulators. So once in your body, they get converted into nitric oxide, which dilates the blood vessels. So it enhances blood flow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And which is why you get that little tingling sensation in your arms and in your legs or behind your ears, because suddenly your blood vessels have got dilated. There's increased blood flow in your body, especially towards your limbs, which sort of pushes you to exercise. Mm-hmm. Can you do without that? Definitely. You can definitely do without that. It's all in the mind. Okay. The second thing, you're talking about supplements people take during workouts. It's usually, they take branched chain amino acids, BCAA. Mm-hmm. Now, this is something that is protein, okay, breaks down in our body into amino acids, out of which there are 9 essential amino acids. So you'll also see a supplement called as EAA, essential amino acids. Out of those essential amino acids, 3 of them, leucine, isoleucine, and valine, they have branches in their chemical structure. So they are called branched chain amino acids. Like we discussed earlier, what is fueling your workout? Is it protein? No, it's always carbohydrates, right? And what are you drinking? Broken down products of protein, right? Now, this is very important to keep in mind. Like I said earlier as well, protein does not have a storage capacity in our body. Cannot store proteins. Yes, it has an intra protein pool, but there's only so much. After that, depending on the need, it converts. Either it converts into fat or it converts into carbohydrates. That is a versatile quality of protein. But do we want it to convert into protein or carbohydrates? No, because we want protein to function as protein, to increase our immunity, to help build our muscles, to give us good skin, hair, nails, stuff like that. So what happens is, if you're exercising and you're drinking protein, that to broken down protein, so the body doesn't have to expend any energy to break it down further. It's already broken down. It's going to function as energy. It's going to function as carbohydrates. It's going to fuel your workout. In doing so, is it promoting muscle protein synthesis? Is it enhancing recovery? No, because all of it is going to fuel your workout. Right? There is a process called gluconeogenesis, formation of glucose from new or non-carbohydrate sources, which is protein. Okay. So that is what happens when you drink BCAA during your workouts. Is it a bad thing? It's not a bad thing, because you're getting fuel. It doesn't matter if the fuel is carbohydrates or protein. Would you get the same benefits if you drink an electrolyte drink like a lemonade or fasten up the reload supplement that they have, you will get the same, it'll be the same thing. In fact, like BCAA usually don't have any electrolytes. And when you're in the gym and when you're doing muscle contractions, you need electrolytes because muscle to contract needs sodium, potassium, magnesium. Does it need protein? Not external protein. It's going to use what it already has, which is why pre and post you need to fuel up on protein.
Definitely.
And also, if you're taking in protein, take in the complete protein. No, then drink a protein shake while you're working out. Why are you only taking in 3 amino acids? Why are you only taking 3 breakdown products of protein? Because there is a body of research which shows that they clog the protein receptor pathways on the muscle and block the entry of the other amino acids.
Wow.
So there is a whole, I can go on and on about this. To answer your questions, take it, but know what it does for you. Don't just take it blindly,
Yeah, they usually follow herd mentality. They see 2 people,
and chances are that they are not built because they take BCAA during their workout. They are built because they follow a good diet generally. They are just taking in the BCAA during the workout because they're starving. It's usually these figure athletes or physique competitors who are on these great cutting down, building up diets, and they may not feel like working out. So they need the boost. They need the pre-workout to kind of prime their mind to working out. And they need something sugary. It's sweet, right? It's artificially sweetened during the workout to keep them sane. Again, the protein goes to the brain and it functions as glucose, helping the brain function so that you don't hit something or the dumbbell doesn't fall on your head. You're capable of thinking.
Right.
A better way to have BCAA is through the day. Mix it in your water and just keep sipping it, through the day. There is no need to exclusively have it when you're exercising. Again, I have a little post on this on my Instagram page. Please check it out.
Right.
But I hope you are clear about that now.
Definitely.
That's important.
Yeah.
If I can explain it to you, I think I can explain it to
everybody. Great. So thank you for that.
Most welcome.
I've traveled. Okay, so when I played competitively, I used to travel a lot, right? 25 weeks a year for years together, all over India, many times abroad. And yeah, so of course, we have certain food patterns at home, wherever you stay, and you get used to it, having this specific foods during lunch and dinner, breakfast, whatever.
Yeah.
While traveling, it is just not possible. I mean, how much ever you try, it's just not, because there's so many factors. You stay close to the event venue. You may not have those restaurants near there. Your timings of the matches clash, with the, let's say your match is at 7 a.m. in the morning, right? So, and here you wake up at 7 and then you have certain foods that you can at 7 or 8 in the morning. So there's so many factors that take place while traveling. How do you, balance your nutrition during these travel days? And also, should you be, you definitely feel like trying out new foods, right, when you're in new places. So to what extent should we do that, and how do you balance it?
So travel interferes with the circadian rhythm of the body, which is a natural body clock.
Right.
Which is what puts us to sleep and wakes us up in the morning early. So, symptoms of jet lag differ from people to people, but they include sleeplessness. They interfere with your bowel movements. They kind of impair your cognitive abilities. You just feel like you have a brain fog, right? So, carry food with you on the flight. At least carry protein bars, carry nuts. Carry dry food which they allow you on the flight. So at least when you're traveling, you're eating the food which you're comfortable with. You have to drink a lot more water, up in the air. And when you reach your destination, you have to eat foods which are very easily digested. They have to be predominantly carbohydrates, because I'm assuming that you're going about 2 days before your event. So they have to be low on spices. They have to be high on carbohydrates. They have to have a minimum of a palm size portion of protein at every meal, because like we discussed, there's no use in consuming a steak. It's not really going to do anything great for you. Half a steak is also enough. Low in spices, high in easily digestible carbohydrates. So your whole grain pasta, your rice, potatoes, right? Protein and nuts or virgins of fat. And you can go to any supermarket and procure all this. Okay. And then also once your game is over, then take some time out, a couple of days or how much ever time you're staying, to then enjoy the local festivities. But before your game, I would say to be on the safer side, because here we're dealing with jet lag, we're dealing with competition anxiety. So let's stick to what we know. Let's stick to sports nutrition. And after that, feel free to kind of indulge in the local dishes. Yeah, that's always a very safe bet, because then if your stomach is not good, then your mind is not good. And there is a mind-gut connection, there is that big connection which plays a very important role in affecting your psyche on the game day. You need to make sure that your stomach is settled in. And 2 days before, you have to start giving it easily digestible carbohydrates for it to settle down.
So I mean, I was traveling, I think Kolhapur, and I was actually playing really well, and I was in the later stages of the tournament, and I just decided to, have one of those spicy Kolhapuri meals, and done. Game over.
Game over.
Game over.
I know.
So,
because see, those meals are very rich in fat because they use a lot of oil to cook. Fat and proteins sit in your stomach. They just don't digest very easily. And they pull a lot of blood to digest them. So we get a lot of gastrointestinal distress, right? Diarrhea may happen, or for some people, they may get constipated. And then the problem is when you're not feeling good, you can't eat. Your other nutrition gets affected. Pre-game, during game, post-game, when it's very, very critical. And then again, you're playing on low blood glucose because you just cannot eat anything. So here I would like to mention my coach, my Ironman coach. And he told me once that he was doing an Ironman race and he got severe vomiting. He just couldn't, like, food or drinking was the last thing on his mind. But he said, I just drank because I had to, there was no choice. Because of a wrong food choice the previous night, there was, he didn't feel good and he brought it all out, but he had to finish the race. He needed the electrolytes. You bring it all out, you're depleting your body of food and electrolytes. If you can't eat food, drink up. Drink your Gatorade, drink your sports drink, whatever it takes. But you want to avoid all this. And you've put in so much training, and all of that can go for a toss with just one wrong meal. So, yeah.
Definitely. So, Maitreyi, before we let you go and carry on with your day, what I want you to talk to us about the latest trends, the latest craze, intermittent fasting.
Oh, yeah.
What is it? And I'm assuming it's like a 12-hour gap between meals, right? You have your breakfast and then you skip lunch and then direct dinner, something of that. I'm not sure.
It can be whatever you make it. People have all sorts of versions. So, it's inspired from the Ramadan, it's inspired from the Ramadan fasting. So with intermittent fasting, if we're talking about athletes, they have to know what their goal is. If they're just doing it to have some sort of a structure to their food, and if calorie restriction is not, if they're not restricting calories, research has shown that it does not affect performance, provided they hydrate well and they get a good night's sleep. So guys, if you're doing intermittent fasting just to try it out without any calorie or aesthetic oriented goals, in your feeding window, which is usually 8 to 10 hours, depending on what approach you're taking, are you taking a 16-8 or a 14, whatever? My math is really bad. Whatever, 24 minus 14. So make sure that in your feeding window, you're not restricting calories. Okay, then your performance is not going to be limited, provided you sleep well, and you hydrate. Again, hydration is, the key, guys. You need water and you need electrolytes. Now, these time restricted feeding, which is, what you said, like they don't eat for 16 hours and they eat 8 hours. People are usually doing them to kind of lose weight or lose fat, right? So with athletes, their performance is not going to get affected because we discussed that, your training is the one thing that athletes can do regardless of whether they eat or not eat, sleep or not sleep, just because they are the muscle memory is so great.
Right.
Okay, and they will also manage to lose weight or lose fat, but there is a concomitant decrease in testosterone and other growth stimulating or anabolic hormones like insulin like growth factor 1, which is actually very important in looking after your bones, looking after your protein intake, maintaining the health of your DNA. So that that happens. Right. My suggestion is, if you're an athlete and you've tried everything else and now intermittent fasting is something that really attracts you, do your training during your feeding window. Don't train fasted, okay? So that your pre-workout, during workout and post-workout meal is done in the feeding window. Another thing, some people are now, just the other day, a colleague of mine was telling me that even in the feeding window, they're eating only 2 meals. Now, this is unnatural. Get whatever 5-6 meals, whatever you want to eat during the feeding window, albeit reduce your calories. But don't go to extreme. Don't develop disordered eating patterns, right? So for athletes, my takeaway would be to lose weight, train in your feeding window. So your nutrition around your training is sorted, okay? Right. And then you can engage in your regular fast or whatever. Great. Yeah. But guys, all the other approaches also have exactly the same gains. It's just what you like. So if you like intermittent fasting, do it. It's not superior or inferior to calorie restriction or any other, method of weight loss or fat loss.
Right. So follow up to that question, and I'm gonna, flip it over. I'll give you. So there are people who can, consume good amounts of, calories and nutrition, proteins or whatever, in 3 meals a day. And then there are people like me who, can't, I don't eat a lot. So, I keep having, short meals. So a bit of breakfast and then something in the middle and then lunch. And then I have a good snack at around 5 and then again dinner. So basically 6 meals a day, right?
Right.
Is that fine or does that work?
Absolutely.
Or what are your thoughts on that?
No, that's fine. It all depends on you. What your appetite regulation is. It's all about habits. You were an athlete, so you did have to eat more times than a regular person. But if for example, if a doctor can only eat 3 times, then that's it. Right. Okay. I would like to tell you another thing. There's a lot of research which shows that eating all your protein in one meal has no benefit. The body will only take in, there's a maximum capacity that the body can take in, and the rest, as we discussed, according to the need at that time, either gets stored into fat or gets used as energy. So it's actually better to distribute your protein into 15 to 25 gram breaks, in all your meals, right? Rather than just having like a 16-ounce steak in the evening and feeling very great that you had your protein for the day. That's not how it works. So what you're doing is fine. Great. Just eat protein at every meal. That's all. Yeah, wonderful. Sure. Do nutritionists like yourself have different opinions with regards to other sports nutritionists about how to go about things? Does that usually happen, like in the field you're in, where you have a certain opinion on certain things, and then there are other sports nutritionists who completely disagree and feel, there's a different approach, just in general? I mean. Yeah. there are a lot of approaches to a single issue, you
Right.
know, and different sports nutritionists have different, so we basically get more or less a similar education. If, you know,
Right.
this is talking about somebody who has a degree and not, you know, has done an online course kind of thing.
Right.
We don't disagree too much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 80% will be the same.
Right.
What, you know, just 20% would be, but you know, I have also done this.
Right.
And what do you think about this?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm always receptive to new ideas and suggestions. And my
Right.
athletes are also willing to try out.
Right.
They're willing to break away from the traditional high carbohydrate school of thought. They're willing to go to a high fat, high protein, low carb approach maybe.
Right.
So we would just go back and forth about that.
Mm-hmm.
It'll not be that somebody completely disagrees.
Okay.
You know, that will not happen.
Interesting. I
It
know
hasn't happened so far.
I said it's the last question, but I have one last, final last.
Okay. Okay.
How much time will it take to see a considerable change once you do start following a good diet and good, nutrition? Change in your body, change the effect.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Again, there are slow responders and fast responders. You know, there is a general guideline that it does take about 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks to notice any visible differences, because, you know, new neuromuscular connections are getting established, right? So it does take time for that entire change to settle in. If you cut out carbohydrates, you will notice a visible change on the scale because you're not holding as much water anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be very fast, but then it plateaus. Yeah.
Great. So patience, people, those who don't.
So here's what I would like to say about that. You have not become obese or very skinny overnight.
Right.
It's taken you a while.
Gradually, yeah.
How can you expect a diet to work overnight? You know, it's the same thing. But the body is beautiful that it works in, it will show you faster results than it did to get you up there in the first place. But you have to give it time. You know, you have to. Otherwise, it will cause you a lot of mental disturbance. It may lead to disordered eating patterns and a bunch of other things which we don't want.
Right. Wonderful. Maitreyi, thank you so much for giving
Most
us
welcome.
so much, information on sports nutrition and hearing. I'm sure many people would have similar doubts as me, and you've definitely helped clear them out. And
I'm so glad.
Yeah, great. So Maitreyi, where can people find you? You have a clinic in Pune, right?
Yeah, so right. So I, like I said, I'm a sports nutritionist and I have a clinic in Pune. I also do a lot of virtual consults where I would require the athlete to fill in an assessment questionnaire, which sort of goes over all their food habits, their training needs, what are their preferences, what is their medical history. I also do a lot of work with athletes, with female athletes having PCOD, polycystic ovarian disease. I run a clinic. In my clinic, so 2 days a week I devote exclusively to girls with PCOD, because that is quite rampant in India, and there are a lot of misconceptions around it. Also, I have a lot of like vegan athletes and athletes with allergies to 10,000 things. So I would sit with them and discuss everything. My clinic is on Karve Road. And you can reach me by in my Instagram, that is Maitreyi_health. My website, that is www.maitreyibokil.com, or email address, that is maitreyibokilhealth@gmail.com. And I think it's really nice that I get to work with a variety of people, right from aspiring models to aspiring NBA athletes to very junior 3 to 5 year old gymnasts. It's great. I just love my job and I'm very fortunate to be doing this.
Wonderful. So I will have all these links down on the show notes. So people, anyone who wants to, get guided, who wants to consult Maitreyi, please feel free to do so. Well, thank you. And we will have you back soon to go deeper into certain topics.
Absolutely. Thank you, Siddharth. It was great. Thank you guys for listening. Bye-bye.